Low quality fans of a high quality Bruins team, welcome back. It is the dead dog days of the offseason, and it's starting to weigh on me a little bit. But I want to talk to you today about all of the offseason conversations that are continuously happening and where I stand on them up to this point. We're going to talk about Krejci, we're going to talk about Tuukka, we're going to talk about DeBrusque, we're going to talk about Brady Lyle, we're going to talk about Cameron Hughes, Oscar Steen. We're going to talk about them all. Before we get there, a lot of you who have been part of the channel for a while know that I usually did these fun skits before every episode. Those will continue once the season starts back up. This offseason has been very, very crazy. Those are the most time-consuming part of the videos, so gonna have to wait on those for when the season actually starts. There's a little more going on. That being said, if you are new to the channel and you haven't seen those, look forward to that, because I make a fool of myself every time. It's very fun. Small amount of housekeeping before we start. Like, comment, subscribe. Nailed it. The latest Short Shift pod just came out today, this morning. It's a real beers with the buds kind of feel to it. It's 40 minutes. It's one of our shorter pods, but we go over a bunch of off-season talk. If you haven't checked out that podcast yet, I would highly, highly suggest you do, mostly because I'm on it. Also, many of you know that I'm not super great with technology, microphone, camera, all this stuff. I am working out the bugs with a Twitch channel that I'm hoping to use season coming time, that I'm hoping to use when the season starts for a more direct way to talk to you guys in live time. So that way we can have like once a week or once every other week where we actually just get to converse and it not be something where you put in the YouTube comments, which I love, by the way, but I'm not always able to answer everything through that lens. Woo! That's a lot of house cleaning right there. Let's get started. And I want to start with the goalie situation because that kind of feels like the biggest question mark over the team is, will the goaltending continue to be at that really high level that Tuukka Rask had us at for a long time? Or are we going to see it take a step back? A lot of people are very high on Swayman. I am one of them. He will not be able to post the same numbers that he did all of last year over a dozen games. We've seen rookies come in hot. I still think he's our future number one. Let's take a step back here and look at the situation as a whole. There's still more development to happen with Swayman. If he can do that well in the NHL, awesome. But the team recognized that Tuukka Rask, if he comes back, will be coming back after a hip surgery late in the season. We needed to make sure that we had goaltending depth. Now, we don't have a lot of goaltending depth. Kaiser is not really ready. Grosnick is not very good. He's a pickup from the free agency. We have Swayman and Ullmark, though. The acquisition of Ullmark, a $5 million contract over the next 4 years, is a huge contract when you think about what the Bruins hand out most often. This means they're looking at him being the 60 to 65% of the game started guy. I really believe that with that contract, they want Ullmark as the number one guy throughout the season. And I think Ullmark's capable of that. I'm really high on him. Swayman, as a backup, should still see 25 to 30 games. I wouldn't be surprised by that. It could be a 50-50 split between these two guys, depending on injuries, of course, and consistency of play. The only way I see Swayman starting right out of the gate is if he continues to do what he did last year in camp. And he's just ridiculous. And if Ullmark stumbles a little bit, which is very possible, it's a new system, if he stumbles right out of the gate in camp, we will see Swayman take over the number one job. I do not think this franchise is afraid of that. I do think that they're hoping it's Ullmark's job and Swayman just keeps forcing the issue. A competitive goalie tandem where they're competing with each other, that is exactly what you want to get through a tough regular season, because we will have a tough regular season. Our division looks really good. And into the playoffs, you know that you can roll both guys and feel good about it. Which does bring me to one of the more annoying questions that we've been having, which is, well, how does this work with Tuukka? I don't like entertaining this question anymore because Tuukka has made statements just recently that he'll be a very cheap goalie for the Bruins. Money will get moved around. It'll be easy to sign Tuukka. I'm not afraid of being able to sign him after the surgery. 3 goalies who are very good. The timing for this works out really well. He should be ready a few months into the season. 3 months, I believe, into the season. Him being Tuukka. If you can get him into a handful of games. Olmark's running well, Swayman's running well, but you just go, hey guys, one of you is going to take a couple days off. We're going to toss Tuukka in. We'll roll all 3. All 3 can be on the roster. That's not a big issue. It will work to see if Tuukka's where he needs to be. This team will address that, especially after the offseason where we really kind of think maybe in the postseason it was the wrong decision to go with a heavily injured Tuukka. I understand why they did it, but it doesn't look like the best decision was made on that. They'll be afraid of doing that again. They're going to evaluate Tuukka as it goes. They're going to choose the best of the 3. Someone else gets back up. Someone else, I'm sorry, but you're watching these games. That is okay. It really is. Everyone acts like if you take a goalie out of the tandem for a week or 2, you completely destroy his development and his confidence and all this. No, that conversation's a very easy one given the circumstances around the team and the goalie situation. You simply need to sit down with one of them and go, hey, we knew this was a possibility. Also, this is probably Rask's last ride. Literally. I really don't think he goes past this year. Give him one last chance if he can play up to par with the others, or more so, obviously. And then he goes off into the sunset holding a Stanley Cup because the Bruins, easy win next year. Easy claps. God, please. I want one so bad. I want a Stanley Cup so bad. It's been 10 years. Guys, we need one. We need it. Point of all this, stop worrying about Tuukka. It's going to be okay. It really will be. Trust me. It's going to work out just fine. Okay, I had that whole section's going to be way too bright, but we're back. Okay. What's the next question we have here? Does Trent Frederic start game 1? Yes, he does. It really feels like the team and Cassidy wants him in his centered position on the 4th line. Lazar will probably take one of the wings. Nosek probably on the other side. Do I love that? Yeah, that's fine. Look, there's no one in our system where I go, holy shit, you're choosing Frederic over this guy for the 4th line, because I don't want to throw a guy like Lauko onto the 4th. I don't. I think he's a middle 6, maybe top 6 winger. I don't want him just to get chucked in on the 4th grind line. That being said, people keep forgetting that Trent Frederic played 42 games last year. He played 42. He was good in 7 of them, maybe? I want Trent Frederic to succeed. I want him to be an absolute staple on that bottom line of energy, aggression, and to piss other players off. I love that. His hands aren't where they need to be higher up in the lineup. And I know he's going to see some 3rd line time, but let's see if he can do anything with it. He will likely start unless he has a terrible camp. He would really have to flub this up for him not to, because the team really looks committed to have him on the center on the 4th line. It will be fun for us if he starts hot again and can keep the momentum. Awesome. But 5 points in 42 games, a lot of negative plays, a lot of missed opportunities, a lot of stupid boneheaded moments. You have to be more consistent. Something got between his ears last season. He just fell off a cliff, but they kept him in the lineup because they needed grit and they wanted grit. It just didn't work out. I see him starting game 1. Does Krejci return? Krejci has made his statement. He had dreamed of playing for the Cocks over in Czech. I don't even know if that's their actual name, but they have a big rooster on their chest. He has dreamed of playing for his team before he got to 40 years old, and it was harder for him to do it. He's not coming back this season. Not only that, it's very difficult to get him back this season. There's a lot of hoops that you need to jump through. We should not entertain that idea throughout. There's going to be a lot of clickbait articles throughout the entire season of what Krejci's doing. Don't click on them. Look in the comments. See what people are saying about it. Just go on your way. Stop supporting people who are just clickbaiting bullshit. The more popular hockey gets, the more it turns into the NBA, where they do a ton of these articles, or the NFL, where there's a ton of these articles. And I'm not saying everyone does them, but you and I both know there's a lot of bullshit out there of people just looking for a click. It's not very fun. It's not good for the sport. And it's not good for the fans. It's aggravating. So don't buy into the Krejci might return stuff. He will not. It would be a complete out of left field thing if he did come back. He wants to play the full season with them cocks. And he wants his kids to stay and grow up where he grew up. Krejci, you do your thing. We love you. He's not coming back. Does DeBrusk get traded? This one's not worth a lot of speculation right now because it really feels like he is part of the plan for this season. Now, I think it is better odds that he is traded by the trade deadline if he continues to be inconsistent rather than traded in the offseason. There are a lot of veteran wings on this team now. He still has a place, I think, on that third line. What is aggravating about that is because we have so many players that can play wing and center, Foligno, Haula, Nosek, it's preventing guys like Studnicka coming up if DeBrusk is playing on that wing because there's just not a spot. Not that Studnicka would play on the wing, but that just bumps, say, Haula to the middle. No place for Studnicka. And again, I don't really want Studnicka on that fourth line. I don't want him to be on a grindy line. I want to see what he can do with more skill and speed. Right now, without injuries, it doesn't look like Studnicka's starting game one, which is a huge bummer to me. I wonder how committed the team will be to making sure their veterans that they just signed get a real chance to show what they can do before things start getting shifted around. Guarantee injuries will allow us to see Studnicka. It will allow us to see Lauko, Oscar Steen, Cameron Hughes potentially. We'll probably see these guys in and out, which brings me to my next question is who gets called up internally. Those are kind of the names to look at. Brady Lyle is obviously one that keeps jumping around to people. He won't start right away. He has to beat out a couple people for that job. Cliffy, Zaboral, Forbort. He needs to beat one of them, two of them actually, to get into the lineup. Jack Ashan is right there as well. It's going to be a little tricky for him to break right in. I'm not super worried about it. Our depth is going to be tested a lot this year. We're going to get to see these names. But as it stands at the beginning of the season, it kind of feels like it's a Grizz-Mac on the back end. Grizz-Mac. We have Riley Carlo and then Forbort Cliffy or Zaboral Forbort. The back end just looks really clear to me. The front end is a little different because we're wondering about that 2C position. Obviously, the first line is the first line. You got Marshy, you got Bergie, you got Pasta. The second line, Hall, question mark, Smith. It appears that it will be Coyle. I wanted to see Studnicka up there and see Coyle work with the veterans on the third line that were just brought in. But in all realistic situations, it appears that the team is going with Coyle on that second line. I'm fine with that. We're going to see a lot of mixtures. You know Cassidy likes to tinker with these things. So Studnicka will get his chance, I believe, between Hall and Smith. Third line, DeBrusk, Haula, Foligno. And then fourth, right now, I have Nosek, Frederic, Lazar. Studnicka's the odd man out. Again, I don't love it, but we just acquired a lot this offseason. Those places filled up. The guys in the AHL, they're going to have a fire underneath them. Studnicka's going to continue to bulk up, continue to get better at the puck possession side of things. Defensively in the slot, he's going to be a lot better, I think. He's not going to be used primarily for that, but as a center, he's going to have to come back and take high slot duties. I think he's going to be a lot better with more development. This year, he's going to get a great chance in the league. We'll see if he can stick because the team does want him to make the leap and to force somebody else to earn their spot back. I already kind of answered this one. Who starts on Mac's left? There was talk about Forbort being the first pairing left defenseman next to McAvoy because McAvoy can make anyone look good. Forbort is too slow moving. His footwork's not enough to keep up with what the first line needs to be. Grizz should be your starter on the left side, first line. Riley Carlo second. Forbort hopefully anchors the third. That's really important. I don't think people understand how bad a bad third line can make a team. When you can get buckled 1/3 of the time, well, with the way the minutes works out, let's say 1/5 of the time, just buckled defensively, you're not going to win a ton of games. You're not going to win in the playoffs. If he can anchor that third line, we'll love him. He doesn't have to be a first pairing defenseman because that's never really what he's been. And I think it's unfair, and Thomas on the Short Shift pod recently did point this out, is that Boston media is being unfair to Forbort by saying all of this stuff about how he could be a first pairing defenseman. That's just not right, and I don't agree with it, and they're wrong. The notables of guys that we left out, we'll kind of go one by one and then clump them together. Zboril, first of all, he has to continue his development process. He is getting up there in the years, 24 years old. It's time for him to make the team. This year is crucial to him. The roadmap for him starting is a nice camp. That's going to be continued for all of these guys I'm about to list. You need a nice camp. Cliffy has to struggle because I really do feel like they want Clifton to be on that right side and Forbort to take over the left. If Clifton struggles, that opens the ball to take the left side. Forbort, who plays both sides defensively, will move to the right on that third pairing. Boom. He's starting game one. I personally don't think that's where we're headed. Camp should be really interesting. Preseason should be really interesting. Zboril should get a lot of looks preseason. Lauko. I'm a big Lauko guy. I'm really excited for him. I think he's a middle six winger. Andrew on the Short Shift has been talking about a top six winger potentially. We differ a little bit on that. But he is not going to be able to get the start right out of the gate. In fact, the only way he plays this season is through injuries. We have far too much wing depth. He is at that point where you're not really worried about him getting into the league this year. Like, it's not a make or break year for him. I personally think that we're more on the side of all the veteran guys and the few players that need to step up this year, need to see if they're actually going to make it in the AHL. He is going to be one of the later ones called up unless he is really hammering Providence with some high-end plays. Chris Wagner. If he plays game one, it better be due to injuries. I can't tell you how disappointed I was in him last year. What do you do with this guy? He has an easily buriable contract in the AHL. Send him down, leave him. I'm sorry, Wags. You'll have your time. You'll get called up a little bit, but come on, just brutal. It was a bad season, man, and it was so weird and uncharacteristic for you to constantly take yourself out of plays. Wags should not be in this lineup. It should very, very, very few games I want to see Wags. Very few. Has to be injury-heavy stuff. Oscar Steen, if Trent Frederic does what he did for the 35 games after his first 2 weeks, then Oscar Steen will start game one. If he continues to look like that, I think he has the advantage. And I said Cameron Hughes originally, but I was ignoring the fact that Oscar Steen is waiver exempt, so it's either easier to bump up and down. Now, I don't think Cameron Hughes is getting selected off of waivers, but it's kind of just, hey, this is the easier route. Let's just do this. So Oscar Steen will get the call on the fourth line if Frederic stumbles, or I guess continues to stumble. I could see it. I think that's a 50-50. I'm really curious to see if Frederic's doghouse days near the end of the season roll over to this one, because you know that this team sometimes has that one guy that just can't crack the lineup where you're kind of like, maybe he should though? This team puts a guy in a doghouse and he's just there. It's just him. Vakanainen. A huge camp, and Zboril and Cliffy fall off a cliff. This guy's got to make some huge strides this year. He's only 22, so there's still time with him. He was just so highly sought after for a little while. Early after he was drafted, where everyone was very excited about him, and he hasn't shown much of that. There's been little glimpses. He needs consistency this year. I would love to see him have another full season in the AHL. Let's leave him down there. We would have to have some serious stumbles up front for him to break that third pairing. This is kind of a group one. Cameron Hughes, Zach Senyshyn, Jesper Froden, Brady Lyle, Jack Deshawn. Only way we're seeing any of those guys early in the season is injuries. It's just they are not on the cusp of forcing their way into the lineup. They will see time because the Bruins are always heavy with injuries. They're just not the guys that you're looking at to steal a spot. All right, guys, that's it. That's just some informal talk about the players, about some stuff going on, the lineups. I didn't really want to get into anything heavy. We're about a month away from preseason games starting, thank God. I do still want to do some more prospect talk in the offseason. Remember to check out the Short Shift Pod linked below. Go